Well, here we are at the fabulous Glebe fishery in Leicestershire. So why are we here? Well, we're here catching a load of carp on an open-ended feeder. So what I'm going to show you is 10 of my favourite tips on open-ended feeder fishing for carp. Well, there's one thing for sure about fishing. You can have all the nice gear, all the best baits and everything. But the most important thing about fishing is swim management. And Ben's come for a look. What do you think, mate? Are you happy with that? Good lad. Come on, let's put him back. Where are the feeding fish feeding? Not the fish, the feeding fish. And I believe that's what makes great anglers great and good anglers good, because they understand how fish feed and they know where to catch them in the swim at the right time of the day. And that's important as well, the right time of the day. So I'm here at this peg, and it's a great peg, and one of the reasons I fish this peg is to show you the different options that you've got when you're fishing. First of all, you've got your normal lines, like your 2+2, your pole line maybe 13-14 metres. You've got a great edge line down that side, so you've got some nice options, but you've got some belting options on this peg. So I've come to this peg and I'm thinking, right, could I go to that tree? There's a tree overhanging, but straight opposite you can see there's a wooden post, a wooden thing along the water. And I think that's where all the fish will be. It just looks fishy. There's two great big bushes, and I think in between them will be perfect. You're going up to a log that's in the water like that, and hopefully it'll drop down the side, and that's where they're feeding fish. That is absolutely, for me, that's the number one spot. Then, later in the day, when the fish want to move into the side, you've got an edge line, and I'm going to be feeding down that edge. I'm going to look fish, so I can fish my feeder or a bomb over it. So I've got a nice option down there as well. Probably not too far from the side to start with, and then as it gets warmer through the day, when fish come into the side, then I'll probably move it further up to the side. And then if I want to fish a pole, I've got my two edge lines. And that depends on how close the fish want to come in and want to feed. Remember, it's about the feeding fish, not just fish. And usually when I say feeding fish, it's the ones that I'm looking for that are feeding at that particular time of day. It's really important. So, swim management. Swim management is the most important thing about fishing. So study your peg when you get there and have a look at where you think the fish will be feeding, because that's where you'll catch them. So the nitty-gritty of feeder fishing is the feeder. It's really important. And there's different styles of open feeder that you can use. But the ones I prefer are these. I prefer that one. It's a new fish smooth hound. And one of the reasons I like that is, one, it's nice and compact, it's small, the weight's forward there, so it goes through the air like an arrow. It's really important to me that, so it doesn't waggle, it doesn't spin in the air, it goes straight in like that. It's really important. One of the things I like are open-ended feeders and not cage. It's really important to me. Now that's a cage one. Now most people prefer the cage one. I personally don't. One of the reasons for that is quite simple. When that's going through the water, I think too much comes off it, and I want my bait to get to the bottom where my hook bait is. So that's why I prefer that style most of the time. If I want to get fish active in my peg, then I'll put a cage feeder on. But I have that onto a swivel, so I can change it. I can change to different sizes. I can even, if I want to put a bomb on and change to a bomb, I can put a bomb on. But it's really important that I have a swivel on, and that's running up and down the line. Now then, there's different ways. If I was on fishing for bream and roach, I wouldn't have this setup. It's a different setup. But when I'm fishing for carp, I like a quick change bead, one of these Corum quick change beads on. One of the best little inventions ever made. Two things. Your feeder runs onto the bead so it protects it. Secondly, you can take it off. You've got the hook, so if you want to change your hook length, you can change it. If you want to change your size, you can do that. But that runs onto it as a nice cushion. And that to me is a perfect setup. Why do I like that bead? Why don't I like the twizzle? When I'm going silverfish fishing for roach and skimmers, I like the twizzle. Well, it's simple. When you come to some fisheries like Mallory Park, the hook length is 20 inches long. That's the rules. So I want to get it as close as I can to the feeder. And if I use the double twizzle, it's there. So it means that I've got 3 inches difference longer in the hook length. but because I've got the quick change bead on, it can actually shorten it by 3 inches, which makes a massive difference, I think, when you're fishing. Because the rules are 20-inch hook length and not hang below the feeder 20-inch, which is really important. And that to me is the perfect setup for carp fishing, where you've got to use a hook length on a commercial fishery. So when I pick my spot that I'm going to fish to get there, it's just a normal cast. Even though I've got an open-ended style feeder on, because these smooth hounds are nice and smooth on the lead, but more importantly, the weight forward. There's a bigger weight on the forward. They actually go through the air like that. It's really important, that, because it makes it go straight. So wherever you aim, that feeder will go. That's really important to me. So the first thing to do then, when you fill the feeder, is put your bait in, and then when you've picked your target, in my case it's between the two pads there, I'm going to face the target. One thing that is different when you land this to a method feeder is, on a method feeder the hook is actually inside, so it doesn't make any difference. Because when you've got an open feeder, you've got 20-inch drop. If you're too close, it'll go over, flick over and go in the grass, so you can't go too close to the grass to start with, because that hook will finish up in the grass. So you just want to be a fraction short. Face your target, bring the rod and put it towards the target. If you're right-handed, your right arm is your direction, your left hand is your power to pull it under. And if you bring that feeder past the rod then and take it forward like that, it can't go no other way but forward like that. It hits the water. Just before it hits the water, you either hit the clip or your finger, and then it'll go plop. It'll flick the hook length over like that, so it's not going to get tangled up in your feeder, and then you let it go to the bottom. Just sink it nice, take your time, don't move the feeder, remember, and that's all that you do. And then once you sank your line, you can put it on your rod rest. I like the line tight, no bend in the tip, put it on the rod rest and you fish it. Right, so what bait am I going to use today? Well, it's pretty simple, to be honest with you. I've got 2-in-1 micros and 5mm. I've got a mixture of colours there, just so nice variation, and I can pick the one out that the fish like, or what I'm catching on. In my bait, I've got micros, normal natural micros, but I mix some of the 2-in-1 micros and 5mm in. I like both here at the Glebe fishery. A bit colourful, the fish come in, they like them. Already caught a couple that spewed the bait up, which is really good. But I always have micros and I always have ground bait mixed up. Why? Because I don't know what the fish want. I know what I want to use, but it's not about what I want to use, it's about what the fish want. And how do I get to the one that I want? Just trial and error. Try them both and find out what the fish are coming to and respond to better. Some days it's micros, some days it's just ground bait, some days it's a mixture of them both. To fill that feeder now, this is what a lot of people get wrong. They press it too hard. All you do is go 1, 2, 3 one way and 1, 2, 3 the other. Now then, what you don't do, you don't press that as hard as you can, because it never comes out, it's no good. You've just got to be gentle and just press it gently, and that'll give the pellets then time when it hits the bottom to break up, swell out and come out of the feeder with your hook bait somewhere around that feeder. So the fish comes in milling round, picks your hook bait in and you've got him. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, when I've cast in then, how long do I leave it in the water before I wind it back? Right, you've got to work it out. And it's different in the summer than the winter. Because fish are more active in the summer, you'll probably be casting it in more regularly. But in the winter, you'll be sat there very patient, and it might be 15, 20 minutes, half an hour before you get a bite in the winter, because the fish don't feed the same. But in the summer, they're more active and they want to feed. So you've got to try and use the bites that you get for the length of time. For example, if I cast in there now and it goes straight round and I catch it within a minute, what's point in leaving it in 20 minutes? There's no point if you don't get one. What you've got to do is after 5 minutes is wind it back in and cast it back in again, because you're catching them quick. The fish are telling you that they're feeding and coming to the feed straight away. So every 5 minutes you're casting in and making it active. But if you cast in and it don't go round for 12 to 15 minutes, you can't keep casting it in every 5 minutes. You've got to have 20-minute casts. So you have to work it out. Now then it's all about the brain. It's all about the brain. So a little bit of advice to you. Get one of these, a stopwatch. So when you can cast out and you put the rod down, you turn it on, and then when you hook a fish, look at it to see what it says. And you'll be surprised how often that the same time comes up within a minute. So if you're getting bites between 2 and 3 minutes, leave it in for 5 minutes. If you're getting between 7 and 8 minutes, leave it in for 10 minutes. If it's 12, 14 minutes, leave it in for 15 minutes. And that's how you work it out. But if you cast in and you put your rod down and it's gone round like that within 30 seconds, then you're doing a lot of casting, because that tells you that the fish are coming to the bait, they're coming to the noise, they're coming to the feeder. So different times of year is really important because it's different. But you'll get yourself a 10 quid stopwatch from Amazon, and I trust you, it'll help you fishing. When I'm picking my hook bait on an open-ended feeder, it's more important than probably when you're fishing a method or a hybrid feeder, because when you're fishing a method or hybrid feeder, your bait is on top of the feeder, so the fish come in, they eat everything that's on that. But on an open-ended feeder, because your hook bait is away from your feeder, it needs to be absolutely spot on and perfect for the fish to pick it up, because it's not part of the bait that's on the feeder or in the feeder. So what hook baits I'm going to be using on the feeder? Well, if the fish are responding off the bottom and they're actually swirling and on the surface, then without doubt the pop-up is going to be the number one, because it's sat up in the air, the fish will come along and they'll take it. But if the fish are coming to the feeder, and when you get lots of little indications on the feed, it tells you that the fish are feeding on the feeder, then without a doubt that one, because it's a sinker, the carpo will be the number one. If you're not sure, then the wafter. That one will stop on top of the feeder and it'll waft about. Today I've caught better on the hookable wafter. I've caught a few fish early on the pop-ups, but they weren't as good as the hookable wafter. And what colour did I catch them on? I caught them better today on the pink ones. So just go through the tub, the white one, the yellow one, the brown one and the pink one, and find out what the fish prefer on that day. And all I'm using is a 16 hook to a spike. I just pick one out and I just get the spike and I put it in and I just spike it as easy as that. It's amazing how many fish you can catch on just one of those. Well, look at that beauty. Another Glebe 6-pounder. Look at that. Orange wafter. They wanted that. Oh, look at that, crikey. So, that's another fish in the old pan. So what I'm going to show you is my little setup. When you come to a carp fishery, where you're fishing for carp, this is my setup. And it don't really, even though this is open-ended feeder, it wouldn't matter whether I was on a method, a hybrid or an open feeder. First of all, you're fishing for carp, so I'm going to use either a 10 or 11 foot rod, and the reason for that is the distance. If I'm fishing up to 30 metres, then what I'm going to use is a 10 foot rod, but I'm a little bit further than 30 metres today, so I'm going to use my 11 foot. It's 11 foot match carp, which means there's quite a bit of action in it. It's strong enough to cast the feeders out and work well, but also soft enough under the rod end when you're playing the fish. That's really important to me, is that bit of action when they're under the rod tip, that you've got a bit of spring, not too stiff. So that's the perfect action. So in this case, because I'm casting about 35 metres, I'm going to use the 11 foot. The reel, there's lots of good reels on the market. I just use a 4,000 size for this kind of fishing. You don't need a big reel for casting miles and miles. I only use 5,000, 5,500 when I'm going at big distance. But when I'm fishing up to 35, 40 metres, I always use a 4,000 size reel. The line's really important. Lots of people use fine lines, but I don't. I use an 8-pound line. I use an 8-pound line because you're getting lots of problems. You're catching lots of fish. They're running in snags and everything like that. You're casting in and out all the time. The rim of the landing net where the line is bouncing up and down. So you've got to have a strong line on. So I use 8-pound line. I just put that straight on, and it don't matter whether it's summer or winter, it's perfect. So if you use that, you won't have a problem. So when you get your fish on, all you've got to do is if you cast into a snag or a feature I should say, you just got to hold it, make sure it don't run into the feature. So you just hold it till it comes out. And when it comes out, all you do then is keep your rod nice and low. So if the fish is going to your right, then put your rod to your left. If it's going to your left, put your rod over to the right, and that turns the fish. But in this case, it's just swimming around. It's a better fish. But the reason why you keep your rod nice and low is to get it to swim. If you put the rod up like that, what happens is they're trying to get their head up and they're fighting, they're awkward. Keep it nice and low. When they start swimming to you, just wind, and swim wind as fast as you can. They'll swim until what happens is that they come under the rod tip. Now this is probably a nice fish, this. But you can see my rod's low all the time. Now this fish has gone to my right, so I'm going to turn it over. And you can see, look, with the angle of the rod, that's now coming back. I've turned it and it's coming back towards me. So that's the only time I move the rod if they're going to my left or right. Now it's swam and you can see it now, look. It's actually gone to my left. So I'm going to turn it over like that. And I'm bringing the fish back, and I'm not going to lift my rod up until it's here where it's in netting position. Now this is a good fish, this. Oh yeah, it's a nice common. It's swam a bit weird, but you can see it there now, look. And when I get it in front of me, I can lift it up then, and hopefully I'll pick my landing net that's at hand, and you can net it. And that's how you get a fish in quickly, by making it swim towards you, and then when you lift the rod up, it's in front of you and they don't know where they are, and you can net them. Oh, there we go. That's nearly double figures, that one. Calm down. You see, you're still fighting because I've actually took all the fight out of it in the swim. And that's a lovely common fish, that. That's a lovely fish. Just lift its head up. It's actually took it well in as well, so it were hungry. And that was on a pink wafter, Volca wafter. Now, you want to have a look, Ben? Come and have a look. Yeah? Come and have a look. Look at that. What a beautiful fish. Look at that. A Glebe common. £9 something, that one. And Ben's come for a look. What do you think, mate? Are you happy with that? Good lad. Come on, let's put him back. One of the things I look for when I'm feeder fishing are line bites. They're really important to the way that I fish. It's one of the reasons why I don't have the rod in front of me. I have it at the side. So I get more of a bend. I get a 70 to 90 degree pull. But also, I don't have a bend in the tip when I'm fishing. I have the tip as slack as possible, but the line tight. And there's a reason for that, because I'm looking for liners. So if I cast out and I'm getting little dinks like that, dink, 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 like that, I love that. Or I get right excited when it's like that, because that tells me the fish have come to the feeder and they're feeding from the feeder, which means my hook bait's around it and they're going to pick my hook bait up. That's really important, and that's what I'm looking for. But if I get liners that go like that, big liners, a lot of people strike at, but they're not actually bites, the liners, and it comes back and it goes like that, right slow, and pulls all the way around. What that tells me, the fish are shorter than where I'm fishing. So they tell me where they are in the peg. So if I'm feeding a middle line with loose feed and I'm getting liners like that, it tells me that the fish have come closer. They're not where my feeder is, they're away from my feeder. So that tells me. So there's two types of liner. The ones I love, dink, 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 and one I don't like, liners, but what it does tell me, I've got to cast a bit shorter. I love liners and I look for them, I fish for them, my setup is perfect for them. I love looking for liners. Well, the setup is really important, and the way I have things organised, it's for a reason. For a start off, the rod rest. The rod rest is set always to my right. I'm right-handed, but I like the rod to my right. It's called hands-free. It's in two rests, so I've got a longer rod rest, like a feeder rest, that is fixed halfway up the rod, so it's roughly about halfway, and then it comes onto a backrest. So basically it can't move, which enables me to feed with the line. I'm not affecting the rod. A lot of people fish it that way across them, and I don't like to do that because I feel like I'm hemmed in, so I prefer to fish to my right. I can pick my catapult, and all the time I'm looking at my tip, watching my tip, and I can feed. So it's called hands-free, and that's the way that I like it. If I get a bite, I can just pick it up and bring the fish in. That's the way that I set it up. For me, that's what I want. I have my two keep nets in front of me, that's as low as possible and maybe a foot off the ground. I have the landing net on top of the keep nets, and it's on to the tray. Simple reason, I'm playing a fish, I can pick it up, I know where it is every time. One thing that is really important to me is the bait that I'm using. And as you can see here, I've got some ground bait mix and I've got pellets. And I have them on these little bowls like that. These bowls go into the hooks like that, and I like them because I've got a mixture of both. They're both together, they both fit on the leg, and I can put them there and they're always accessible. So if I'm catching on pellets, I'll have the pellet one on the top, and if I'm catching on ground bait, I'll turn it round and put the ground bait on top. That's what I do. But what I always have is a little mixing bowl, which is that. You can see that that's the pellets, but that's my mixing bowl where I'm going to be using, so I can control what's going in or on the feeder. But they're always on these two hoops at side of me where I can fill the feeder. Then I have my tray with all my baits in, my feed baits, my hook baits, in this case the wafters and pop-ups. So I've got to work out which of the two I'm going to be, but they're all at hand. Everything's at hand. My catapult at hand, disgorger, and everything round me. Any bits and bobs all go on my back tray. All my back tray's nice and cool, including dogs sometimes. But that's my setup. Everything's nice and simple, but it's all there for a reason, to make my life a lot easier, to make it easy. I'm not crisscrossing, I'm not mixing things up, and I know where everything is, I know what it's job to do, and all I do is put them in a position. It's called routine, it's my routine, it just works perfectly for me. Just try it. Well, that's been a fantastic day. My top 10 tips on open-ended feeder fishing. Let's have a look what we've got.